All right, I'll tell you what.
All right.
We are going to fire away.
All right, I'm ready.
Look at that guy there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reunion special. It's been forever, but we are back, the Cathode Ray podcast. My name is Louis Zezerad. I'm here with my friend Steve Nutter. It's been a million years. So many things have gone on. We're happy to talk to you about it. We thank you very much for tuning in for this episode of the Cathode Ray podcast. Steve, my friend, how have you been, mate?
I'm wonderful, Louis. Now to see you again. You know.
So American. Everything's great, man.
You got to keep optimistic sometimes because
True.
Because when you're, I think we discussed this not too, pretty recently that I was about to turn 40 and I just feel like, is my life setting me up for my midlife crisis or for like a meltdown at my 40 for when I hit 40? Because, man, it's been like a wild few weeks since you and I had been talking.
Absolutely.
So,
is there a sports car coming? Maybe a red CRT or something like that?
Nothing that exciting. A sports car? No. There are some CRTs coming. Actually, I bought off eBay. I did like a little shopping yesterday on a live stream. Funny enough, and I like to send lowball. I don't consider them lowball, but lower offers on the eBay to recyclers, especially. And
right, because you're getting into that. You're sort of analyzing who the seller is and going, right, if it's a recycler, maybe they just want to move this shit. Okay. And how did you have some success? Yeah,
I mean, it's actually been going. That's how I've bought the last few, but. They're still averaging, a pretty good amount, even with offers, and sometimes they just don't work, And I mean, it's costing about $400 on average for them shipped, which is probably like $100 more than it was last year. So it's not as easy. But what are you going to say? Everything's going up.
That's the game. It's because of these influences, Steve.
Yeah,
CRT
it's always
influences.
Been our faults and everybody else's. Yeah.
That's right. It's your own fault for pushing up prices here. Here he is complaining.
It's okay. A lot of people want them.
That's great, man. Have you had, when you're buying these CRTs, $400 is no chump change, right? It's nothing to be sniffed at. Like, are you still pretty confident you could put it together? Have you had one that's just you haven't been able to do something with?
I was thinking about that. Not like one that I've bought that I've invested anything like that in that's just like dead on arrival and useless. So that's one of the things that definitely goes into my consideration. I told you that I've been doing a lot of cleaning up around my shop and organizing my spare parts and boards and things, trying to do that better. And so when I know what I have there, and then I see that there's something not working, that's a good deal for me. And then I know I have all these parts. I'll take a risk, like take a chance on that to get something working based on what I have plus what is available. A lot of times, like, for example, I bought a 5-inch PVM that I had done a video on, the little portable one. I bought it because I have like 20 tubes for that one.
Okay.
And I don't have any monitors for it. So I was like, well, if something's bad with the tube, I at least have a replacement. So that goes into a lot of the consideration there.
When you were saying 400, now with these ones you were buying yesterday, because I saw that it was like 300, 330, and then the shipping on top. Were they 14 inches? How big was that?
Yeah, they're averaging 14 inches.
Okay, so about 14.
Yeah, and I say like $400 usually gets it to the condition where it's needing to be serviced then almost. Like it's working, everything's fine on it. Sometimes you'll get something where like the 1350 needed a power supply. I couldn't get that one repaired. So I had to take a power supply from back stock, and power supply like that generally has a value of like $150 if I need to replace it from Pat or eBay or something like that. So I have to consider that. Whereas that monitor, I got it for like $250, but then I had to, do that. So then
you got $150 worth of
right,
just
so
parts, not
right.
let alone
So I can't
time.
just think, oh, it's 250, right? You know, you're using. So that's why I get that average a little bit, and then I put all the effort and time into restoring it after that.
Sure, absolutely.
So, and
With
go ahead. Sorry.
with the one that had the power problem, is it not like, are there some issues with a power block that you just can't fix yourself? Like some might be capacitor, some might be something, but sometimes it's just, it is what it is with a power block.
Well, it's just become something that, yeah, you run into something on there's wrong, and I probably have the parts in storage. But it's like I run out of time, so I just have to I get to work on it for an hour, and then if I'm lucky, I can come back to it relatively soon and work on it for another hour if I can't figure it out. And so after a few rounds of that, it might be something that is one of the ICs on there that's hard to find and hard to swap out and test. So that's kind of why I just keep them and log them and hopefully get them working together where I have
That's
the
a
parts.
good point. So I was saying, well, just, fix the power supply, Steve. Come on. But if that's taking you 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, that's starting to add up. And at some stage, you just do the maths and go, fuck it, 150.
Right.
Like, I'm going
Same
to put
thing.
150, get a new one. It's done. I need to get this thing out the door so I can move on to my next one. So I appreciate that. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the model of power supply, because some of them later ones are a little bit more complex, have more parts, and can be more costly to fix just in parts and tough. So same thing with the other boards. Same thing happens. But I'm also at the same time, I've told everybody this. My formal education was not like in electronics, so I'm still always learning more and understanding more about troubleshooting these machines. And I had a really good experience recently with that. So, okay. There was PVM that a customer had reached out to me about. They had tried to do a replacement deflection board capacitor kit on their own. And they did it on their own, and then they put the monitor back together. They tried to power it on, and it didn't work right, shut off, and then they powered it off. And they said something didn't happen right. And I said, well, if it was working before you did it, then you did something wrong, right? Yeah. Obviously. So
that would be the logic, yes.
You need to go back and recheck all your work. Or I said, I don't have a way of testing your boards. I told him, but I will be glad to go if you want to just send this to me now and let me take a look at it. I will. So I got that those boards sent to me, and I look at them, and it's the L2, so it's pretty modern for a PVM. It's one of the last ones they made, and I immediately go and look at the hot, which anybody who's ever worked on CRTs will know what the hot is. It's like one of the four major components, the horizontal output transistor. It's on a big heat sink.
Oh, it's an acronym. HOT is an acronym.
Yeah. So it's near the flyback in that area. And if it blows, the power won't come on. And it can blow. And so that's what I did. I took my multimeter out, and I just put it in continuity mode to check if it was, if anything had continuity. And I just started probing the ends of the hot. And if that's working properly, they shouldn't be beeping on every leg with each other, So I put it on there, and immediately they're all beeping, which means they're all running together on the same rail, and it's not doing anything. So without seeing any visual problems, I immediately knew the hot was blown. And so I said, look, I know for sure this hot is blown, but just replacing that hot probably wouldn't fix this issue, right? Because something caused it to blow. So I went back and I reviewed all the work that he had done before, and I found two capacitors where he just put the wrong ones in a spot. And
The wrong capacitance ones.
Mm-hmm. So one of them was a 100. It was a higher voltage. It was a 50 volt 100 microfarad capacitor is what the call for was on the board. And he put in a 25 volt 220 microfarad capacitor. And it was a pretty crucial spot that he did it in. He could have done it in another spot and it might not have made any difference. But
So
this...
To be clear, when people listening to what we just described, so if I understand, Steve, and correct me here, when you're using capacitors,
Yes.
you can use a higher voltage. That's okay, but you need to use the same capacitance, the ohms or micro ohms or whatever it is. That needs to be exactly the same.
Microfarads, yes.
Yeah, whatever that is. Yeah.
Unless there's a known change, which
Okay.
this was he just got it from the list and accidentally put the wrong caps in two spots.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't think the first, like that's what I'm saying, the first spot is unknown because it called for a 50 volt 100. Both of them called for 50 volt 100 on the cap list. But the first one, they both had 25 volt capacitors, and it's just the other one had a higher microfarad value on it. The other one was a 25 volt 100. So I don't know that lower voltage, maybe it was the one that caused the problem too, because they were both wrong. But I believe it was the other one. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. You just put the wrong value part in there, and you can always, if you're going to replace a capacitor, it is safe to go up to like a voltage, like you said, or go the same on voltage. That's fine. Don't ever go lower. And there's no real benefit most of the time to going higher. But, yeah, you don't want to go lower. And you can't change on the microfarads. That needs to stay the same.
No, that has to be the same. That's exactly the same.
Right. Because
this capacitor is storing electricity. It's storing energy. And my crude understanding is, well, it's going to store too much. And that's going to send too much back down the line. Somehow, some smarter person than me can adjust my metaphor in the comments.
Yeah. Again, we talk about this just being like something that we're studying on our own, and I always tell people, I'm like, I probably have terms that it's like, give me the thingamabob, and it's like I don't know what the exact term is for it. You know, I never got educated on it, but those two capacitors were wrong. So I knew that was a problem. So I replaced those with the good ones. I went back and I reflowed all the solder that looked iffy on all the other legs. He did a good job. He didn't damage the board or anything, which was really good. So I replaced all those parts, and then I still had to do one check though, and it was like to make sure that the rest of the parts involved in this weren't blown. And the first thing I did was I used my multimeter for all this. I did put it in ohms mode, and then I checked the resistance of the resistors that were all within the paths of these legs off of the hot, right? And then anything in basically the hot block, I checked every resistor to make sure they were all reading good, and then the same thing with all the diodes, because there's probably like 12 diodes, but you could do that pretty quickly. And sometimes you do have to remove a diode if it's reading funny, check it, and then replace it. So, I did that kind of systematic thing. And then I went around after that, and I put the multimeter back into continuity mode, where it just makes a sound if everything's in connection. And all the grounds on a board like that, big complex board, but the grounds are supposed to be connected on a big ground. So the idea there is to go around and you put one end on just a big point on the ground, anywhere on the board. And then you just go around and you could check on the board, and everything that's supposed to be a ground will beep because it's on the ground loop. And then there's other lines, and none of those should be grounded. So you go around and you systematically check a lot of these points throughout this whole half of the block of the board. And if anything makes a beep, that's not supposed to be shorted to ground, you have a component that's more than likely bad, right? But I did that through the whole half of the board and never found anything else. And so I wasn't, I was not confident that this was going to work, right? You know?
Is this the hot that you're speaking about? Is it one component or is it an area on the board?
Yeah, I can show you what it is.
Yeah, show. Here we go. He's going for the parts bin.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Time for show and tell.
Bag of some, and this will look like this on pretty much any CRT, not just PVMs. Mm-hmm. But it's just usually a 3-prong transistor like this, big fat one.
That thing, yeah,
big fat
yeah,
one like that.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
You see it? It's pretty good size.
Right.
And yeah, so
what is the purpose of that transistor?
Well, you're getting into too much now over my head now.
Sure.
Because I don't know that, like I said, that's supposed to, it's got a major, it's in the major voltage path. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell you right now. I'm not thinking right, but it's got to do with the horizontal hold on the monitor, and if it shorts out, it won't even turn on. So anyway, that's like a major part. It's like the flyback or something. If the flyback goes bad, you're not going to show up or you get any image or power right. But yeah, so I replaced all that, and then I had to mail them back the boards to the client and just wait. And he sent me a message saying, yeah, he'd put it back together and that it worked perfectly.
Wow.
So yeah, it was. I was pretty happy. I was like, "Wow, I figured that out without even being able to test it."
Oh yeah.
So,
did you not have a compatible monitor to test that board?
I did, but I'll be honest with you. I didn't want to fry my own tube or.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
I told him that I was like, I wouldn't if I knew for sure. I mean, I was like, I'm probably safe, but I'd rather you just take the chance. And I'm not damaging any equipment here. There would have been no risk, obviously, but and depending on what the thing is, I will do that with some of them, but not always. So
was it just the 2 caps in the end? Sorry, or some diodes need to go as well?
Nothing else. It was just the 2 capacitors and that other part. So it's a pretty small parts job, but the majority of the work was basically 2 hours of labor of me troubleshooting the board, Sure. So
wow, that must be a relief because I mean, so that could just really be anything. And how easy would it be to miss something small on that board?
Yeah, it's a double layer, and then I had to tell him. I was like, look, I don't know if this will work, and then you can send it back. I could try to look at it further if it doesn't, but I don't know. It's like can't guarantee it.
Okay, so that's a success story. We've got one in the win column there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very nice, mate. Well, it's good. There's always ups and there's downs. Have you had some frustrating ones this week as well, or is that? I mean, that's the win. Has there been the opposite where there's one you're just like, I'm gonna throw you against the friggin' wall?
Well, I did have to do so, but they all turned out okay at the end of it, thankfully. But I had to do somebody hired me basically to work on 2 monitors, and they both needed tube swaps. So those are always complex, more work. And then
did you have the tubes already, or where did you? Yeah, okay. So you're
thankfully.
offering the parts, selling the parts, selling tubes.
Used salvage tubes that were still in good shape. But the first one was a 13-inch, and so smaller one. But I got the whole tube installed, and then I couldn't get it to power on. Like, it would power on, and then it would power off immediately. Like, not get signal into the tube. And I thought, I had this tube tested, and it was reading fine, but maybe something's not right on the tester. And so the problem was, then I put the whole old tube back in. Like, I reinstalled the original tube that the client sent, and powered back up, and it did the same thing. And I was like, hot dog, something's not right here. And I found out that there's a a point where you have to screw in 2 ground cables to the grounding frame on this particular line of PVMs. And that was the one thing I didn't do because I thought it was just like fine with testing, right? Putting it back together and testing. A lot of those grounds in the ground loop, some of them you can just leave unplugged. It doesn't matter. This one you couldn't. I literally I just accidentally happened. I was like, well, let me just screw this ground thing in and see if that makes a difference. I powered on, it works right away. And I'm like, what the heck? No way.
So that's those little wires, and you see them when you open up the PVM, and it's screwed into the frame, right? I think anyone who's opened up PVM has seen one of these. So it's important. Don't neglect. This is the lesson that we've learned here.
I like, just for the test. Now, if I was putting it back together, I would always put it all the way back together. But there's some grounds you have to leave disconnected to leave it in like a test mode. And so I immediately turn the monitor off, remove the screw, and power it back on, and it shuts off like it did before. So I was like, my goodness. So I had to go back then and take the old tube off, put the second tube. So I did the work twice on that one. And but I got it figured out, and I figured out something new about that monitor, so I'm not too
You learned something. You
like,
gotta
that's
know that
something
for next
I
time,
would have never thought would have just prevented it, like it's a shutoff, an automatic shutoff, to just, if this one ground is, probably a few others, but not connected, this monitor won't power on.
Oh, mate, it's a win if you learned a lesson.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You learned that lesson there. Oh. So I wanted to talk about this week some investigations, some sleuthing, some private eyeing that we have done about some apparently new CRTs coming out of China. Now, I was alerted to this from my friend listens to DF Retro. Our good friend John Linneman was talking about this on one of the DF Retro or DF Live podcasts. And I unfortunately hadn't listened that week, and my friend linked me. And he sent me a bunch of links to AliBaba. Now, not AliExpress, AliBaba. And AliBaba is the wholesale version of AliExpress. So AliExpress is you click, you get your stuff. It's like eBay, but it comes from China and takes 4 weeks. AliBaba is meant for wholesalers. And you can't just click and order one. There's usually, I don't know actually how it works, but I think there's some sort of communication you got to make with the seller. There's definitely minimum order numbers. It's where you want to order 100 of something, 1,000 of something, this sort of thing. So maybe I can bring up the share screen option here, and
good idea.
Let's is this upload a slide? No, I don't.
Because I've also got it pulled up here, just on my own, so I can refer to it with you. Because this is a super intriguing thing, and the thing to me is the actual order quantity is not out of control. It just says you got to order 2 of them.
That's very interesting. Can you see my?
Yeah, I can see it there.
Okay, you see my little my Firefox.
Yeah.
So the first one here, 20 to 30. Here, I'm just actually going to move my monitor so I can see a little better. Right. The first one here I'm looking at 200 pieces minimum order.
And yours says that 200
there's
pieces?
There's multiple of them. There's a 21 which says minimum order 1 piece for a 21 CRT X flat that we're looking at here. So they've got everything here. CRT, 4K, smart TV, 32-inch TV.
Like, why does it say 4K? I don't understand all that. And then, like, if you look at that's the thing about this advertisement. Before we even start, all the pictures are so generic and like fake. It's not, it's nothing that's helpful from like a review standpoint.
Sure.
It doesn't do 4K because it's not even got anything beyond what I can tell is a composite input.
Definitely not. So there's this video that comes with them.
Yeah,
Can
but
you
I think
hear that sound that comes with it? It's just generic.
It's generic where it just rolls through the pictures.
Yeah.
It's just it's like it's like a realtor video.
Yeah, it is. It is like a, and you can see even if I'm going down here, there's other ones here.
It says you can order over 10. So you can get 5,000 of these, and it said the lead time is only 21 days.
No problems, boss. Hey, but this one here has a little. Do you see this video here? and it's showing.
Yeah, that's actually showing some manufacturing. No, I didn't see this one.
So it's something being. There are some printed circuit board being manufactured here, but there's nothing in this 22-second video to indicate that it's a board from a CRT. It could just be a shot from any
manufacturing.
Factory. Right, we don't know nothing like that. So there's Hongjun, 14 inches. Okay. Right, and they all look, they certainly don't have any styling. What do we got here?
Where
21
did they get
inches.
5,000 tubes? Where?
So,
right?
This is an excellent question. Now, I was talking to try to find some more information about this, because what is it? Lead time 7 days, 5,021 days. Right. So these guys, first of all, could just be saying like, I mean, yeah, who's ordering 1,000 CRTs? The only information that could come up was like maybe the African market, where you're talking about countries that, you know, don't have much money at all. But I don't know. And maybe someone has some insight. Are new CRTs being used in developing countries or something like that? Where I would have thought just a shitty flat panel would get you there and be much easier to ship and much easier to handle. But I don't know.
I do
Someone
know
mentioned
some
to me
information
Africa.
about that. I do know some information about that. Funny enough.
Okay.
You want to hear this? Like,
okay.
No, it's not. Like, legitimately, I got sent an advertisement, and this was like 4 years ago, and it was a market study on the entire size of the CRT market up until 2020, basically. And it was saying that in the third and underdeveloped world, third world countries and whatever, that there was still a huge amount of them using CRTs and needing displays. And rather than somehow making new ones, they're going to just send these CRTs still. And they're still buying them. And there's still this huge use for it. I don't know if maybe the thing to think about too is we're in America and the cutting edge, you know, Western cultures of technology, everything to us is high definition. But if we do, like, if you think about it too, we're also trying to push forward in solar and other technologies, right? These underdeveloped nations are relying on older technologies that we used 30, 40 years ago to try to get to where we are. They're in a lag behind process, economically and developmental wise as the cultures go. And so they could all have to still be trying to run local TV broadcasts from analog television, for all I know, because it's still cheaper. Maybe. I don't know.
Sure, absolutely could be. Absolutely. That could... okay. Is some person in a third world country who's struggling to get their family by, maybe they're in a war zone, and are they sitting back going, oh, it's not 1080p. Oh, no. I need 4K. Guess what? Bombs are going off.
Yeah.
All right. Some warlord just ransomed my sister. Yes. All right. Maybe we're going to be fine with composite, so to speak. Because look at some of these things that we're seeing here. I love it. Interface type USB. What? SVGA. What? No, it's not. Use bathroom TV. Love it. Operating system cloud. This is great.
Cloud,
well, refresh rate 100 hertz.
To
That might be correct.
Oh, man.
This might be a one correct thing on there. Refresh rate 100 hertz. That might actually be correct.
Oh, no. If they really made all these be at 100 hertz. Oh, my goodness. I see that.
Well, again, is there some...
Yeah, because this says screen size 30. I'm looking at a 14-inch listing, and it says it's got a 39-inch screen. And it's SVGA. See, maybe it is 100 hertz to get to 800 by 600.
So it's very unsure. Right, okay, so they're doing something... Well, I think it's hard to put any stock in any of these statistics because it looks like they're just saying things. And
look, this looks like a Toshiba from like 2000, or a Magnavox from like 2004 or something right here. Well, and I don't think that there must not be, since there's only, it's a pretty low minimum order on something, you know, for only having to order 2 of them. Like I said, I wonder, can I even order this?
give it a go. Contact supplier. There's a button right there. Shipping to be negotiated.
Yeah, I would not get the 20-inch ones though, because they're too big. What if they stink?
Sure.
I don't want them.
So
yeah, that would be something to check out.
I wanted to get some more information on this. So actually, I think we're done here. I can close down this one. Close. How do I stop sharing? So I wanted some information on this. So I talked to Retro Castle Ivory, who's our guy who makes the Mr. Components, makes that great IO board that I've made the video on. And I found him, like, he's a great resource. He's a nice guy. We talk a lot. I really enjoy. He sends me pictures of when he goes on holidays and he's town in China, and I'm really fascinated to learn how he lives and what life there is like. He's this amazing electrical engineer who's basically running this AliExpress store out of his bedroom or his back room and doing really great work. So I asked him what's up with this. And so he says that, okay, in China, there is still a lot of CRTs and there's a lot of new old stock. He sent me some, like really quickly, sent me some listings of actually genuine brands, like real brands, Sony, Panasonic, Toshiba, whatever, like genuine new old stock. And they do go for a reasonable price. Like, it's not like, oh, I've just got a Trinitron new old stock for nothing in China. But they're available and they're there, even if the price is a little bit high. He was also saying that he is 99.99999% sure these are not newly manufactured tubes. And this holds true to what you and I know, that manufacturing tubes is not easy, that if there was some, like the factory and infrastructure that it would take to manufacture tubes is just so great. And it's not just even spinning up a electronic supplier or the dudes printing the circuit boards. It is absolutely custom technology that could only be used for this. Huge investments required, hundreds of millions sort of thing to get that factory going. So he's like, this is absolutely not new tubes. What he thinks is it's either a new old stock of tubes. So that's one possibility, that they just had a whole bunch of old tubes. Another possibility, he said, is that in China, the government pays about €8 or $8, whatever, per TV to get rid of it because of the chemicals, because of all the bad things that they don't want the CRTs in landfill. There's so many of them with the 1 billion people in China. So the government is paying like something like $8 per set. So it's also entirely possible that these guys are getting old sets and taking out the tubes. Now, if they're offering, I don't know what this means. They're ordering 1,000. Do they have 1,000 of this? Where the fuck are they getting 1,000 from? No idea. But he thinks it's entirely reasonable that it's either new old stock tubes or old stock that they've just ripped them out and they're putting new componentry, as you saw, constructing the electronics is not so much the hard, like that's the easier part in this process.
Yeah.
It is conceivable that someone could make electronics. So they could be old stock, could be new old stock, but his overall point is these are going to be low-grade CRTs. This is not something that you're going to want. This is not something that a retro gamer in the West is going to want to take their time to source. That you would just be much, much better to get any consumer TV that you can find in secondhand, that you like, even if you have to ship it across a couple states in America. You know, this is still a much better idea than spending $50. I don't even know how the shipping is going to work from China, because these guys don't just stick it in China Post, right? Like there's going to be, they said, like cartons, pallets, you know, you're talking major international shipping to get these. So it's a cool idea, but I've been fascinated to know where this is going.
Yeah. And to see, I get a bad feeling that there's a real possibility that these are leftover late end, sent to China after people were done making CRTs in the mid to late 2010, you know, right before 2010. I bet a bunch of these were sent there, and there probably are these 100 hertz style tubes, because a lot of the stuff on the language here on what the video support is might infer that, but a lot of it's just, like you said, bunk, garbage.
Right.
But it
Cloud
also says,
and USB and like
it
what?
says that they're able to possibly produce 100,000 a month if you need it.
I mean, like, look, Duffman says a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think is the answer to that. Okay.
They'll take your money and go on a holiday.
Yeah, right.
And maybe get you. But it does intrigue me to the point where like it would be nice if Ivory would just, if we could buy him for Ivory and have him just take photos and video of it and keep them for us. Because I don't think that shipping them over here is going to make for you're going to get a lot of expenses and things that just to be silly kind of.
Absolutely. I'll keep pressing him for information, whether he knows other people or he can keep looking what's up. So it's really good to have this resource, actually.
Well, and it doesn't say, we also don't know what region this composite video and stuff is set up for, right? So we don't know whether, I'm sure it's going to be a different, it's not just going to be like NTSC. Well, no, actually it does say NTSC on it.
One of here says NTSC PAL. It says
Okay.
50 hertz PAL, but then you go down and it says receiving PAL NTSC cam.
Oh my goodness. So it's saying it can do it all. Look at it.
But then it just says size 14 to 21 inches. Which one is it?
I know. Well, and if you go down, like there are a bunch of pictures, but it's stuff of just nothing to do with CRT manufacturing. So it's
there's a video down below that I'm watching, but it's actually them making flat panels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and you know it's troublesome when you're looking at this website and the flat panels are more expensive than the CRT still. So it is interesting and weird. But maybe it's part of the thing where they realize there's no way to safely and easily dispose of these things. So they somehow just try to make it into something to get somebody to buy it.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's why it's the cheapest.
I mean, maybe I've got a, how to say, look, I don't want to punk anybody. I don't want to be gotcha on anybody, but maybe it's worth, just to write him a message, just ask a few questions. Like, I don't want to, I'm trying to give them false hope, but to ask them a few questions, I think I'm going to do that. Actually, I'm going to just see what we get out of, like, what,
Who's
like
the
what
liaison?
Yeah,
I
what do
have
they
a
say?
business
What's the process?
working in CRTs in the United States. I'm sure they'd love. I mean, if they're looking for I guess if it was good, but I can't imagine it. But you never know. I guess
The remote is.
know.
I mean, absolutely.
I imagine
You
there's
can't
going to be
imagine.
lag somehow in it. Somehow they added lag in the new versions of the CRTs.
I don't know how they did it. 15 kilohertz,
I don't either.
but somehow they managed to get lag in there.
Oh my goodness!
So I think AliBaba is a real treasure trove because it's the warehouse thing. Definitely lots more questions to ask. And I searched, just for reference, AliExpress, the more consumer-friendly one for CRTs, and there's nothing. There's nothing that comes up there. So for the hotel service. So anyway, more investigations to come. If you have some information on that, if you have some background, please tweet us, leave a comment leave something in the comments. We'd love to learn more about this mystery. Where are they being used? Where in the world are these CRTs going?
Right, and all we have so far is what looks like generic. I mean, anybody could kind of steal those photos that we just saw of the examples.
Sure.
What are you actually getting when you buy it? Like, what does it actually look like? Does it look anything like the picture? Is it? I don't know. Yeah, well, I think you could. It would make for a great unboxing video. I know that, but we'll see. We'll contact him and see what happens. I think this is definitely worth some fun follow up.
Sure, there's some fun there. I don't want to, as I said, I'm not trying to like poke fun at them. I just want a little bit more information about that. So yeah, we'll see where we go. Oh boy!
And if anybody is in China that happens to listen to this, you could do us all a favor. Just order it somehow if that's possible. Order 2 of them.
I would love if someone is, because Ivory was explained to me, due to, as it's probably quite understandable, due to the language barrier, there really is a Chinese retro scene, and it's not that connected. It is, but isn't, in some way. So you've got some guys like Ivory who are really reaching out and forming those bonds. And Ivory is also friends with Bob now. Bob's been talking about his stuff. I've been talking about his stuff. Other creators have seen that. But I think that language barrier does present a problem, even for the reading, even for the consuming of information. Even if you can't speak English very well, often it's more common. Maybe you can at least read. And I think that is a struggle for them. But there is a Chinese community there. Maybe someone's listening. Maybe it's possible just to get some info.
Yeah, that's I sometimes I get surprised a lot because when I've done most of the time when I do the live shows on my channel that have been going on this year, it's during the middle of the day, like right now when we're filming. So I do get a lot of people from around the world in the chat, surprisingly. So there's always a possibility somebody sees it.
Yeah. Where are they used in your country? If you come from a developing country or some other place, it'd be fascinating to know.
Yeah.
Ooh, so yeah, what else? So the other thing, I will say, Steve, that we apologize. We haven't done this podcast for a long time. It's summer. Maybe we should have just said. I think what we could have done, Steve, is be more clear. Be like, yo, it's summer. It's summer schedule. I mean, I've had a lot of changes in my life with my new job as a leadership consultant. For you, summer has been about working hard. There's a lot of family stuff going on. So I think we had that last year. Summer's always sort of a bit of up and down. So next year we know we can.
Yeah, we should be probably better, more communicative about that. But I think we're learning too that, well, for me, for example, my kids are home from school in the summertime in America, and I can't just go let them play Roblox or watch videos all day, which is what they want to do. And then my wife gets home from her job at 5 and is like, what the heck? They're idiots, And I'm like, yeah, you're right. They've just been sitting
They're going to turn out like a CRT repairman.
They'll turn out worse than that. They'll just be mindless, hooked to the, So
what have you been doing? What do you do with your kids to get them off the Roblox, get them off the Minecraft?
My wife actually came up with these chores lists, which has been helpful.
Okay, this is good.
And some lists to things that they need to do every day. And then things that they do sometimes every other day, and responsibilities, try to get them into these habits. It's check sheet. And so if they go through that list, it keeps them busy a lot. So that's what they're working on now, and they'll work on when they get up. But they're not just allowed to sit around and play on the games all day. Now, what's been more difficult here lately, which has been a bit different, but I obviously know a lot of people in my hemisphere are dealing with it, is there's been all these crazy wildfires in Canada. Over 900 this summer or something are going on simultaneously. I'm not quite sure because I don't get to see a lot of news about it here. But what is happening is I'll walk outside, and I'm in Virginia, thousands of miles away, and it's just the air quality is terrible. It's hazy, and it's the middle of the day. The sun's out, so it's hot and hazy and weird. And I don't really feel like taking my kids out, having them play and breathing in that stuff all day.
Sure. Even so far south, it's still
it's crazy.
Such a factor. I wish, I can only imagine how it must infuriate you as Americans. These friggin' Canadians Canadians putting their dust and shit over there, causing you problems, and there's nothing you can do. What are you going to do? Sue them? What are you going to tell Canada? Put trade embargo until they stop the wildfires or something? There's nothing.
No, what they should do is they should go up there and try to help them put out the wildfires. I guess that's about the best thing. But but this stuff happens. I know. I mean, there were. 2 years ago, my brother lives in Northern California, out in the woods, and it's a mess up there when they'll have fires start and wipe out tons of areas. But it happens. There's not a lot of rain in that area, and it definitely affects. I'm sure that there's all kinds of areas over in the other side of the country that get affected from that, and other parts of the world that have. So it's going to happen. Now, I will say something that's interesting is you go out to California and like the parts areas that he lives in and works in it, and this is very relative to what he does because he owns a tree business where he goes and he trims these large trees most of the time for businesses and residents to keep them healthy, keep them alive. And you're not allowed to like just cut down trees. Like if you don't like a tree in California, you're not allowed to just like remove
The trees
it.
have rights too.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's not really the problem. The problem is like their budgets are so they have no money. And a lot of things that get apparently cut is they used to go in and you could do these, and goes all the way back to like Native American culture. You would go into the wilderness, wild woods, and there's a lot of dead stuff on the ground every year. Well, you would go in a controlled burn method and basically burn away slowly and safely layers of that stuff every once in a while to clear the forest of this stuff. Or you'd have to go in and move it and remove it and burn it somewhere else. But that was also thought to be like dangerous smoke creation for the environment, I believe. So probably had some part of that in there. But that's where you get a negative where there's been decades of now this stuff that's not been treated. And so it's literally stacks and stacks of fuel is what they call it. In my brother's business, they just call it fuel. Because if an ember goes down and catches on fire, it's there's no stopping it. It's very impossible to stop because there's so much dead stuff on the ground that gets going and going on the fire, and it just becomes a rager.
Yeah, we have that similar issue in Australia, and also our native people, the Aboriginals, going back thousands of years. They had learned even themselves to do burns somehow. To get away this stuff. And I know our bushfire fire brigades have this. There's some policies they've actually learned. I mean, I think they were a bit stupid around the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. And then by the 90s came around, they started to wise up. We better listen to the black fellas. They got some traditional knowledge that will help us. And they use this tradition, and they do controlled burns. So just like the native people used to do. And also they'll do stuff like burn out a corridor maybe so that if it can't jump from one section to the other. So,
right.
I think there's the wisdom in the traditional knowledge is something that has to be listened to here.
Yeah, and in California even, it's gotten so bad where in Northern California, there's regions that just don't get any rain for portions of the year. And there's so much buildup on the ground. And then, like, they're using old power lines that have aged for electricity through these areas. And then they get these high windstorms. And they have to proactively, ahead of forecasted storms, just cut people's electricity and cut whole electricities to areas because it's like a power line goes through somewhere that's wooded, that has this fuel around it that's not. All it takes is a windstorm, knock it over, knock the power line over. The power line causes a fire that causes billions of dollars in damage, and it's originated from that power line. The power company gets sued, blah, blah, blah. They never have any money to maintain their equipment. So instead of going out and like properly fixing all this stuff, they just go out and they're just maintaining what they have. And this is an interesting thing that happened one time when I was there with my brother. They had a windstorm coming through, and they cut his power off because he lived out in the middle of nowhere. And we saw them. They would come in, and after the storm was over, or the storm days were cleared of wind, they would visually go in and have to verify every line was still not knocked over before they cut the power back on. And they would do that by helicopter. So you'd have to go watch, and a guy would come. We were sitting out there hanging out outside, and a guy comes with his helicopter, and he's checking the power lines. And then, sure enough, within like 2 hours, the power's back on, thankfully. But it was definitely a different experience.
Sure. I know also in the native trees and flora, the flora and fauna, the trees and animals and shit in Australia, they're actually, a lot of them are designed to work in these bush environments. So a lot of the native trees, or some of them, have this sort of seed mechanism where they actually need fire to open them up So
Oh.
fire not only clears away all the debris and everything, but because they're so used to it. So the fires just always
Yeah.
happen in Australia. So they drop to the ground and it could stay for a while. And then the fire will actually crack open the nuts or whatever it is. And then that's what sparks the new life. So new beginnings can happen. I had a question for you though, Steve. Sorry, who was it? Your brother? Who was the guy with the tree guy? Was it?
Yeah, this is my brother. My
your brother.
younger
What do
brother.
you call his profession in English? What's
what,
the
like
title?
arborist?
Is it arborist?
I believe that. Yeah, he's educated for it. Like he went to school. He was actually on a lumberjack team at his school where they would go to
That's a
competitions and do these lumberjack challenges. I mean, he hurt himself bad there. My brother is the kind of guy who always hurts himself. And I mean, not he was always on the skateboards. He's blown his knee out and like torn his ACL so many times. And so that happened, of course, in the lumberjack competition. But fast forward after that, he moved out to California and started a tree business, which is wild too, because they're so where I live, if you hire a guy to come work on your trees, if you needed it, he would be using all kinds of equipment that's illegal in California. So there's that hurdle to get past, and then all the additional regulation, and then the cost of living so high out there. So I can't even imagine like the pricing he does for jobs, you know?
Oh God. Yeah.
He said a lot of times the people he works for, most of them are wineries. So because they have so much land around there that gets damaged from fires, and it could be a huge job where they have to go clear out acres of burned wood that's millions. And, so.
Because I had this buddy of mine who works with me as a leadership instructor. His name is Rene. He was in the Estonian army, and he actually, incidentally, only very recently completed the U.S. Army Ranger School, like the full-on legit 4 weeks that you have to go to be an Army Ranger. He's one of the only Estonian dudes who, on some transfer program, was in there, Fort Benning, I think it is, whatever it is, and completed their hardcore 4-week school. And his day job here, as he's retired from the military now, is the tree guy. And this sometimes happens when people are speaking a second language, that he said the word arborist to me. And I've got to say, I just don't hear the word arborist very much in English. I know my native speakers out there, it's not a word. I go tree guy or the hedge dude or something.
It's
And,
always an
at
official
first-
title.
Right, and I thought maybe it's one of those things where someone who's learned English as a second language has just gone for the official title. They read it from the textbook, and then, yeah, right, as you're telling me now, arborist is the term. He's an arborist.
Yeah, and in America, you can get like licenses with that and certifications and things like that. But it's crazy. My brother, they work with some of the biggest trees in this country, and some probably in the world, these redwoods and things, and they're trimming them and maintaining them. He has to do this crazy stuff. No way I could do it physically even. But he, recently when I went to the lake for my family's property, he came and visited the same time and worked on trees on my family's property there while he was there. And so we watched him do this stuff. And he would just throw like a rope up in this tree that's like 100 feet in the air over a limb, and it come back down, and he somehow hooks himself up and just shimmies himself up this single rope, this double down rope, all the way up to these limbs, and then just starts chopping the limbs down and they fall. And it's just like nothing. I'm like, holy crap, man!
Had
like
the
no joke.
strength to
Yeah.
pull
Oh my
yourself
gosh,
up
he's
like
got
that.
no. He has he's got no body fat on him from doing all that. It's like his physique is literally like a dude from Fight Club or something. You know how those dudes were ripped in that movie? That's what he looks like with his shirt off. Like he's got muscles on his back. It's not like he's not big or anything. It's not large at all. It is just super defined because I don't know. He just does this, and he does that every day.
Clearly, no fear of heights.
Oh my gosh, no, I can't. Right.
I had to do a filming. It was about a year or so ago, and we were doing a short ad shoot, and I was the actor. And it was like this sort of kind of this ad montage where I'm doing like in every shot I'm in a different location and crazy locations. And one of them was I'm literally 20 friggin' meters up a tree, and they're like, "Are you okay with it? Are you all right with it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm all right." And I could eventually climb. I was roped in, but I didn't like it up there. I couldn't shimmy myself. No, that's right. I couldn't get myself up. That's why I was talking about you like that.
Yeah.
Like they put the harness in me, and that dude was then doing to me, and I sort of just a token grab of like, "Oh yeah, I'm helping. Yes, I am helping." So this dude's doing all the work. He's getting me up the tree.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to stand there on a limb, and he made sure the limb was okay, and then I sort of give my line, and then they send me back down again. But I don't enjoy. But then again, on the last part of that shoot was we were shooting at the top of the Thailand TV tower. You know, it's a big old, like a massive Space Needle style, huge, you know, not just like a radio tower. And there's you go up 40 flights, and there's a restaurant, and there's some area there. And you can go out on the ledge, but they've got the thing, so they strap you in, they hook you in, and you can stand on the ledge, and there's no fence. I have no problems with that. Like if I'm strapped in, like to like they put you they got a harness, you get strapped in like you're a climber, and there's a thing there. I have no problems peering over the edge, but I hated that tree there, so I don't know.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I used to work before, you know, when I got out of college, I worked in all these concrete facilities.
Oh yeah.
So I would go to places that would have incredibly dangerous. Mm-hmm. Lots of places where you'd be like 30 feet up looking straight down at the ground, and you're like, oh my gosh, like you say, if you're not, you feel, I think I understand what you're saying. If you're in a harness and you're tied up and you know that harness is safe and the rest of the area is safe, you feel differently than there were many times where I'd be like, have to go get to this spot, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going up here, like climbing up here, and you look over, and then you just get this immediate sunk pit to your stomach, almost butterfly, throw up, and then you just want to freeze and like not move. And I remember many times working in the concrete plants like that, and I was like, what the hell, this is not worth me doing this. Like you said, it's like there's nobody there that like cares about you like you had. It's like they're calling you, like these are blue collar concrete people that have been around this thing every day, and they're literally calling you a friggin' chicken for not you know, they're laughing at you. So
you got to do it
right in front of they're like calling your boss saying, hey, come pick up your baby, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore.
I thought of so I had another acting experience where I had to be in heights. Years ago, I was in a Finnish sitcom from Finland called Kimmo. Anyone who's from Sweden or Finland will probably know this show. Third season. It was a pretty famous show. And they wanted me to play there's a foreigner. So Kimmo is the main guy. He's kind of a quirky dude. Life is always a bit quirky and never quite goes for him. And in this season, I was going to be the foreign boyfriend who his girl, or, you know, whatever, the girl had broken up, and she found the foreign boyfriend. And I was that guy. And the course of the season goes that I don't know, whatever. There's always rom-com stuff back and forth. But eventually, she decides she wants to be more with Kimmo. But I get crazier and crazier to the point where I kidnap her. And I'm running away with her, which is the first thing I knew some Finnish blokes had written this script, because the foreign guy is the one who goes crazy and kidnaps the nice Finnish girl. But I was like, all right, boys, no problems. We can do this script. And I was filming one of the shots, and I don't know, you just get a sheet of paper and they're like, come to this place, you got to be there. I'm like, no problems, boss, I'm there. And now most of the script is in Finnish, but my parts are obviously in English, and they would put subtitles on, which means the script was all in Finnish. except my parts. Now, I did not translate the rest of the script. I was like, no problems, boss. I'll do the line, do the bit. Right. So as we are approaching, we're going past Helsinki Airport. We're going to an industrial zone. We're going into a concrete factory. They've got a lot of tall sort of freestanding, because they've got those in a, like some sort of concrete style factory. They've got those conveyors that go up.
Yeah,
and
conveyors that
dump
go up
them
into
in,
dump into different things, into a mixer, basically.
Got a lot of this going on. And we get up there, and I'm like, all right, we're going to do this line and this line. And then they're like, are you ready to be suited up with the harness? And I'm like, what now? What am I doing? And they're like, yeah, the last bit of the script has you dangling 50 meters in the air. Like, didn't you know? It's in the script. No, Lewis hadn't read that part of the script. But I'm there. I mean, I can't very well say no at this stage. I fucked up royally, and I've got no choice but to, because the way it goes is sort of because it's still a comedy at its heart. It's very lighthearted. So we're up one of these towers, and I've got the girl, and I'm like, no, Kimmo, you won't get her back. And then she like kicks me in the balls or something, and then, you know, I go, oh, and then runs back to him. But then I'm like, no, you'll never take me alive. And I jump from the thing. But the idea, the comedy, is that I end up like, I get caught on a hook, and I'm dangling there. So rather than committing suicide. Yeah, I'm not falling, and I end up just dangling there like, oh, I couldn't commit suicide. I accidentally caught, like a bit of it slapsticky.
Yeah.
So I don't have to jump, thankfully, but the final shot is they've got to put me in a harness, then put clothes on top of me, so I'm more bulky, and then they lift me a good 50 meters in the air, if not more, and the shots, like the long shots of me hanging up from this tower. And there are those moments where you start to reassess your life, and you start thinking, how did I end up hanging from a crane 50 meters from the air, you know, in Finland? How did
I end up in this spot?
My life get to this point? So thankfully I did back out. But read the script would be my advice to anyone going on an acting job. That might be the basic.
Oh, that's too good. That's too good. Yeah, I bet you've never not written a script after that, right?
Yeah. Now I'm like, hey, what does this part mean?
What's this mean? Your translator's on point. Well,
so, yeah.
Before we go, and I forget about this, I need to bring up something that's going on Twitter, and has to do with us, and it's this whole Dr. Wham. Dr. Wham controversy, okay?
Now, Steve loves his shitty sodas.
I want to clear something up because it's been driving me crazy, and I actually already had this conversation with...
so break it up. Like, repeat it.
With
start from the
Scarlet
start.
Sprites. I already had this conversation behind the scenes.
Start from the start for the people who are new to the controversy.
One of the last few episodes we did ago, we had Joe, a.k.a. Scarlet Sprites, on. Mm-hmm. And the joke was I went and got something to drink, and I think I came back with like a 2-liter of Dr. Wham or something, and it was it is obviously a competitive product to Dr. Pepper.
It's a knockoff, Steve.
The soda.
Cheap knockoff.
But here's the thing. It's not actually a knockoff. That's what I'm trying to tell Joe and all these other people.
How is it not a knockoff?
Here we go. That's how I'm going to explain it to you now.
Break it down.
So, there's this other beverage company called PepsiCo. I'm sure everybody's about heard of it.
Absolutely.
We've talked about it before in our episodes for some reason. And
the USSR, the Soviet, that's what we talked about Pepsi.
So PepsiCo has, Virginia has a lot of universities in this state in the United States. One of them is local. I mean, there's a lot of local ones here, but one of them is the one my wife works at. And I know for a fact, based on the way they do the things there at the school, they have, and they've told me this, they have a contract with beverage companies. So you cannot get a Coke anywhere on the campus. No Coca-Cola products, only PepsiCo products, okay? So it's funny because every time I go to an event, even if it's not, it could be a sporting event open to the public, or it could be a university hosted event for employees, appreciation things, and they cater it. And it'll have every Pepsi soda you've ever heard of and some you've never heard of. And that's what it is. Dr. Wham is in this early distribution phase in our specific area because PepsiCo has multiple contracts with the schools in our area. And it's like we're in an early release town for some of these weird beverages. And they're not like cheaper, like, knockoff brands. They're the actual PepsiCo brands being like early released here. So there's going to be
Dr. Wham's owned by PepsiCo.
Exactly. Well, it's distributed currently by and again, I was laughing with Joe because I was telling him this. He's like, "Yeah, right. It's just Dr. Thunder or Dr. whatever, which is a knockoff version of Dr. Pepper." Uh-huh. And so I was like, I saw it in a vending machine at one of the schools. PepsiCo vending machine, only Dr. Wham and a couple other PepsiCo products. And I took a picture, said it, and everybody again started making fun of me for buying knockoff soda. And I'm like, I'm trying to show you that it's actually coming. And I tell all this to Joe. I'm like, yeah, I know it because, again, what happens is I'll go to these events and they'll offer weird PepsiCo stuff that's not available to everybody yet. And then I'll see it in other places and then the distribution gets bigger or it doesn't and the product disappears and you never hear from it again. And so we don't know what Dr. Wham's going to be. But I do have an update because last weekend I was listening to the local radio and there was a 2-minute infomercial about Dr. Wham, how PepsiCo's distributing it. And if you go into a store they don't have Dr. Wham, please tell them to get Dr. Wham. Ask them why they don't have Dr. Wham because it's with PepsiCo and it's going to be and all this stuff. And I'm just laughing.
Loving it.
And everybody's like, "Oh, that's gross. It's fake Dr. Pepper." And I'm like, well, maybe it is fake Dr. Pepper at the end of the day, but it's not technically the Kia or Daewoo version of a CRT. It's not that version of the soda.
Okay, so it's legit. Okay, next up, the taste. We're still going on this one, all right?
Okay.
Next up, taste test. How do you compare Dr. Wham to Dr. Pepper?
It's fine. It tastes, hey, since I'm in the distribution network, maybe for the next episode, I will get some bottles and I'll do a blind taste test here on the show.
Yes.
I'll just set them up. I could do that real easy and we'll see if I can tell any difference between the two and which one tastes better to me. And
we want to see this.
And I'll be completely legitimate. And if I can find any other weird regional marketing materials at all, I'm gonna find it. And then you had the brilliant idea, though, before we even get off this topic, to have an alter ego presented called Dr. Wham, and it's a doctor coat. And I was like, damn, that is a great idea. And I was like, maybe I should get ahead of Pepsi on this so that people think that, no, that's not, Dr. Wham isn't the drink. It's that weirdo on the internet.
You're right. The CRT repairman in his basement is going to get ahead. Is going to get ahead of the PepsiCo Corporation. You're right. I think that's
maybe that's how I start making. Maybe that's the only thing that would inspire me to make shorts. YouTube shorts would be Dr. Wham doing weird stuff for 50 seconds with CRTs.
See, that's now I'm worried. The might of the PepsiCo lawyers are going to come after you.
Oh, well, that's true. They might have already. I'm sure they.
Because I just thought of some Chinese guys, right? Hey, don't worry about it. If it's the whatever the freeway cola or whatever. There's the regular version here.
Dr. Wham.
I would love to know if any of our listeners.
That's a good point.
So you're in a pep. Okay, first of all, have you seen the Dr. Wham? Do you know any information about this? Secondly, you said you're in the Pepsi test market. I wonder if maybe someone's listening who's in Atlanta. Maybe they're in the Coke. Maybe there are such markets for Coke. Atlanta's Coke, right? That's where it comes from.
That's
maybe,
so. But there's other similar things where probably somebody is like me, works in a university that has a Coke contract.
Sure.
at their school, and then they do the same thing or are in a Coke majority distributed area.
Is Dr. Pepper owned by Coke?
See, that's what I
Like,
thought.
is it-
I thought
is it
originally
directly
Dr.
like that?
Pepper was owned by Pepsi, but I guess I'm wrong, and I didn't know. I haven't looked that up. They might be on their own, like
I think they're
with like Canada Dry or something. I have no idea. Who owns Dr. Pepper? So thankfully we're on like the internet, so we could probably look this up.
Oh boy, I'm confused. So this is the
Oh, Dr. C says it's cure.
Okay, Dr. Pepper is owned by Coca-Cola in the European and South Korean markets. Everywhere else, it is managed by the Dr. Pepper company.
Okay, there you go. So it is Coke, and then it's on its own here. That's what I thought. Okay, and then
So I guess Coke doesn't have their own because they're not trying to compete.
it says Dr. Pepper is an independent beverage company,
Yeah.
and they lack the infrastructure to produce their product in sufficient quantities to meet demand, so they license their product to other
Europe,
beverage
South Korea.
manufacturers like PepsiCo and Coca-Cola.
Oh.
So it's basically a way also. Whoops. Oh, no.
Huh.
Cancel. Okay. I almost hit the wrong button.
We saw
So
Steve
so
Lee
it's
website.
also a situation where it's being distributed by both companies, and so we have to look out for the Coca-Cola. What's the Coca-Cola version of Dr. Wham? Dr. Pibb? That might be Coca-Cola's version of Dr. Pepper. Who owns Dr. Pibb? Have you ever even heard of Dr.
I
Pibb?
have never heard of Dr. Pibb in my life.
See, aha, is a soft drink created by the Coca-Cola company.
Okay.
So if you look up Dr. or Mr. Pibb, now it's been
Pibb,
styled as
P-I-B?
Yeah, it used to be Mr. Pibb.
Okay.
Now it's just P-I-B-B.
Pibb got a degree.
It used
Sorry,
to
he's
be,
Dr. Pibb or Mr. Pibb?
It used to be. Shoot! Now you got my head thinking. Let me think. Hang on. It says
No,
right here.
okay. Pibb Extra is the reformulation of Mr. Pibb. Okay.
Mr. Pibb.
I thought Pibb had gone to university. He got a degree, and he'd become Dr. Pibb, not just Mr. Pibb.
I got
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, anybody who's been in the soda, drank cola in the United States or anywhere probably in the last 40 years should have an idea of what we're talking about here. So this is like Mr. Pibb. Used to be Mr. Pibb. Looks like it's just Pibb now. It was always supposed to be kind of like Dr. Pepper. I'll see if I find one of those two. We can do a three-way.
Oh, this is great.
Three-way flavor.
Pibb was first introduced as Peppo to compete with Dr. Pepper. The name was changed to Mr. Pibb after Dr. Pepper sued the Coca-Cola company. So what we're seeing, there's many controversies in the soda market. And it's like you can be friends one day and enemies the next, and how international corporations do their thing. What do you got there,
like
Steve?
imagine being involved in like a multi-million-dollar lawsuit with a company at the same time you're contracted to distribute their product and pay them licensing fees for selling it.
I could
So
totally
I
imagine
imagine
between
that's
markets,
probably happened at some point in the relationship between these companies.
It's all business, baby. It's all business.
But yeah, so we have Pibb now. So if you say that, but maybe some people think that like Pibb is it is a knockoff. It's right. It's meant to compete with. I don't know.
Actually, when I look at the Pibb Extra Wikipedia page, it has related products, Dr. Pepper. Then it's got another one called Dr. Wells, which it lists as a pepper-style carbonated soft drink produced by Dad's Root Beer Company of Indiana. And then there's Dr. Thunder, which is the Walmart home brand version.
So that's the example of the cheapo.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the ultimate example of the knockoff. It's like the Walmart version, their brand version of They call it Dr. Thunder. And then there was the other one that he was showing, like Dr. Publix, which is just a grocery store. It's like Dr. Kroger's. Like these are Dr. Grocery. So those are the knockoffs. But Pibb and, gosh, I wish I had the bottle. I'll get a bottles. We'll look at it, see if they even say PepsiCo a Coke on them. We're gonna have a fun
Yep.
show and tell next time.
We're doing the blind taste test for sure. You'll work it out. You'll do the
I
the
can
ball
find
game.
those.
You just move them around in front of you.
I better be able to find those, or damn it, I'm gonna go into every store and I'm gonna say, "Where's that Dr. Wham?" I'll dress as Dr. Wham, going, "Where's the Wham? Where is my soda? Why have you not got my soda yet?"
Get to the storage room.
I was just like thinking of having like this terrible Bavarian accent the whole time, and just yelling at my dog and calling him Mr. Pickles for some reason. I don't even know why. I was just like, "Mr. Pickles, buddy," just so.
Dr. Wham and Mr. Pickles. I love it. This is the show. This is the concept right here. And
This
the
is
dog's
why I
got a
never
little...
can make my YouTube work. I always waste my time thinking of these things and how to incorporate it. And it's like, what am I doing?
CRT, Steve. CRT.
Yeah,
stay on
right.
focus. Stay on track.
Right.
Stay on track. But it's fun. People like the entertaining shit. You told me so many when you make a bit of entertainment, people love it, right? You got to have that mix. Sometimes it's a repair video. Sometimes it's Steve screwing around.
Yeah, or I would have never... I lost my sanity, probably.
Okay, we'll work on this. Maybe I will. We'll work on this. I'll find some crazy Estonian.
Now,
drink.
right, that's what I'm saying. In Estonia, is there any? Do you guys get Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, sure. So you can find.
So,
Dr.
is there
Pepper here.
anything like that? A alternative of Dr. Pepper distributed in Estonia? You
I
think?
need to check. We've got some cheap stores. Lidl, maybe European. No, Lidl. That's like some big Aldi, sort of big German warehouse thing. We've got a few of those. I will do investigation. The problem with this is I don't like Dr. Pepper. So we're going to have to work on this. Maybe
Maybe you can pick a different one. That's fine.
cola derivative or something
Yeah,
else.
something else. But I actually
I'll
like
find some
Dr.
crazy
Pepper.
local drink. They've got some like a lot of weird fermented yeasty things. Kali is some weird fermented, like it's just basically like drinking bread, like drinking heavy carbs. It's so they got kind of these weird traditional drinks like that. I'll find something good.
Cool. I like the sounds of that. Yeah, speaking of other things I've been
Love it.
kind of dipping my toes into recently
Oh yeah.
is like, I don't know what's going on. Like there's whiskey bro trend like going on. Like there's
What's that?
it's
Tell
where
us,
like
what is that?
every dude is now, or like all the cool thing is to be into drinking like whiskeys, like bourbons,
Okay.
and like trying to get these special bourbons. And so I've been buying all like these bourbons. I think I've got like 4 or 5 bottles up there.
So what? You're just succumbing to the market? And
Yeah,
you're like, fuck it,
and
I'll get
I'm
that.
just like becoming bourbon guy, and I'm like, I haven't been drinking beer. My wife's yelling at me, saying I've been drinking too much. Oh, you're drinking too much hard liquor now, because that's all I've been drinking is just like.
Okay, but no, but you're like, I'm a
whiskey.
classy guy. What? You don't want
Yeah.
some
And
beer
then-
swilling thug.
Well, the
No.
funny thing is some of these are, they're like usually 100 proof or higher. So you usually drinking them just straight on an ice block, and you drink a couple of them, you're like, woo, my face is numb. So yeah,
I'd love to see you just to me, it would be so beautiful to take one of those lovely bourbons that you've got. You said they're 100 proof. They're very expensive on the rocks, like a real fine drink that you'd usually sip, and then mix it with Dr. Wham.
Oh yeah. Right. Then I that's a good idea. Hey, you want to make this perfect? Mix it with the. Could you? Oh yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll show
$100 bourbon.
I'll show. Yeah, like I think that I do see. So I went to and there's this funny whole thing about bourbon because it's all like limited, right? So there's certain distilleries in the United States that are like, ooh, they're like the Trinitron
Very
of
exclusive.
bourbon,
yes.
right? And they only release a certain number of bottles. And depending on where you live, there's different laws based on the liquor. And my state of Virginia you have to they're all like managed by the state, all the liquor stores that sell it. So they aren't legally allowed to add markup, like aftermarket markup. So like the retail on these bottles of whiskey is like $60. But some of them in the secondhand market will go for like $1,500 because nobody can get them. And it's so hard to buy and sell in a secondhand market because you're freaking bootlegging your own. You're like, right? You're trying to
So you can
sell
only-
your own booze.
So the heavy liquor can only be sold at a state-run store in your state. Is that right?
In my state, yes. Or, liquor by the drink rules or the ABC rules of restaurants. You have to get a
Sure.
license. You have to get a license from the same people, same organization that does the liquor stores. So bring that up because occasionally, like I went in over 4th of July, I went into an ABC liquor store, which is down by the lake house I was telling you about, and I'd mentioned. And they had, I get up to the bar, the checkout, and they have like 10 bottles of whiskey sitting there. And they're like, yep, these are limited ones. You want to buy any of them? And I was like, God, I didn't even know you had this. So I bought one. And the one I bought was a 12-year-old. It's 12-year-old Knob Creek is the name of it.
I've heard of that brand, sure.
And it's, so it's hard to get. And they were like $60. So I bought that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm buying that for sure. And I bought it, and it was the last one. And then there was a bunch of other bottles, and I went to the grocery store right next to it, and I came out of the grocery store, and I said, damn it, I'm going back, and I went and bought another different one that was like $70, and it was the last one of that one. And then I was like, man, why didn't I go back and buy another one?
Wait, are you drinking in the middle of this? How come you're getting these ideas? Are you drinking some and then getting a bright idea? I need to go buy booze, or what's inspiring you to
I don't know.
Are
Like
you
I'm
sitting
saying,
back
the whole
thinking?
whiskey. I'm like, well, my stepfather's super into this, right? So, and they own the lake house. He got a big cabinet at both his houses filled with all these ridiculous whiskeys he's been collecting, right? And I mean, some of them are like these Pappy Van Winkles is like the most popular one to go after. I think it's like $1,500 sometimes for a bottle of this stuff, even though it's only supposed to be $70. So it's just impossible to get. And like here in Virginia, since it's not legal to mark it up, the stores that get it, they run a state-run lottery. And if you're a Virginia resident, you can sign up for the lottery. I tried to do it this year. I got there 10 minutes after the lottery opened on the website, and it was already full.
The bourbon lottery.
Yeah, and you have to be a resident because that's what I was thinking. Like my stepfather's, he lives in Tennessee, but he has the house here, but he doesn't have a license here. It's his license is there in Tennessee. So it's like, you got to get in this. You got to do this lottery, man. You got to do it there. Your good chance of winning. I'm like, what? And this is before I have any interest in the whiskey. And so I get on there, and I'm like, damn, man, I can't even get on. They locked me out within 10 minutes because it was full. They didn't accept any more lottery applications after a few thousand. So every time I go visit him, I go to the liquor store. I buy like a $30, $35 bottle of bourbon, and I go there, and I just like give it to him as a gift when I visited, and then he'll just let me drink whatever from his cabinet. And like, oh yeah, come here, try this. And so I'm drinking all this stuff. I'm like, oh man. So like I said, man, I've started getting a taste for it and liking it. And then like I was getting tired of drinking and like so many beers. And then you're like, it's hot summertime. Who wants to be drinking all beer? I don't like light beer very much at all.
But,
So-
and now, what is light beer to you mean light in color or low in alcohol?
Well, I meant it's more like super light Pilsner.
What is that like? Okay.
Pilsner style, like
So light in
like
color.
Bud Light,
what's the
Miller
alcohol
Light,
content of that?
any of
What's the
these
percentage?
light, they could be up to 5% in alcohol.
Oh, okay. All
and
right.
still be bad to me. Like
Sure,
not what
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to drink.
Only
So-
because here in Estonia, when they say light beer, they often mean light in color, like a
No,
not
that
a,
doesn't
not a
bother me.
dark one. Right.
I like a lot
where
of light and color
In
beers.
Australia, light beer means it's like low alcohol. 2%. I can drink one and still drive. So okay, just
Oh
cultural
yeah, no.
differences.
Like yeah, there's in our country there's NA which has like no alcohol, very little, and then there's like light beer which, well there are these low carb beers that I think have like 3% alcohol.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then light beer can have like 4.5%, 5% sometimes.
Okay.
But it doesn't generally go too much more than that. But yeah, that's just normal like beers like that. Not really into that. And then, so that's how I kind of got the taste, for this bourbon. And then like every time I go to the lake house, I just bring him and leave him a bottle because then I'll go drink out
Sure.
of his
That's
instead.
polite. That's
And
polite.
So yeah, so that's kind of been like the thing I've done. And so at the same time I'm seeing these things, I'm like, oh man, I'll get this for him as a gift. And then it sits there in my cabinet, and I'm like, man, I want to drink some of that. So then I'll open it and start drinking. I'm like, I guess I'm not giving this away. Now I'm a whiskey guy. And then on my phone, it's like popping up stupid whiskey videos. You know?
Right. As soon as you watch one on YouTube, the algorithm's like, something new, I'm going to,
Yeah.
Is there any chance for you to flip some of these bottles at all? You said some
I don't think I would do that unless it's, because again, it's like, I wouldn't know how to sell it. So my plan is to just get it, at the price and not really, unless it's something super special where I probably held on to it as a gift for somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Like somebody I wanted to impress or something for some reason. I don't know. If I ever got a call to a meeting with the Rockefeller Foundation.
Sure, that's it.
For like a grant to resurrect all the CRTs or something, then I'd probably bring that, founder of that a bottle of this stuff, something like that. But the meantime, I'm not. There are ones in the liquor store that like actually, it's funny. I was in the liquor store and I was like, so when do I'm asking the clerk, I'm like, when do the you have any bottles that aren't out available? Because I'm buying this stuff, but do you have any? And he's like, well, I was like, what day did this stuff? No, nothing else. No, not right now. We've sold out of everything. I said, what day normally, do you get stocks come in? He's like, Tuesday, every Tuesday. So that's Tuesday. I'm going to go stop at the liquor store either today or tomorrow morning to see if they got anything new in. It's like
this has become your thing now. This is what happens, especially I think men our age. We find something new and we just jump on it. Right. This is our life. This is okay. Yeah.
So that I've been tasting the whiskeys, bourbons, and then actually, and then on the meantime, since it's hot and everything, I was drinking more vodka drinks. And this was something else I thought was really interesting because, there was a time when obviously Stoli vodka. Oh, yeah. You've heard of Stoli, right?
Stoli, we say in Australia with our accents.
Right. So
Stolinica is what it's contracted from.
Right. And that's right. It's what it's contracted from because I didn't realize this, but there was a time when it was basically boycotted right at the beginning of the Ukraine conflict.
Oh, was it? Okay,
in the United States. Yeah, okay. But it's back in shelves. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, it's really good vodka. So I was researching. I was like, there's no way it's back on shelves if it's actually Russian anymore. And it's not actually. It's been rebranded as Stoli. They got rid of the Schnaya, and it's coming from Latvia.
Okay, yeah, sounds like something.
And that's
that could
all.
happen.
That's where it comes from now. It's all made from Latvia. Nothing. So I was like, it's interesting. But the thing is in America, it is stigmatized right now, and it's cheap. Like, it's on the same. I consider it in the same quality as something high end like Grey Goose, but it's like half the price. So that's what I've been buying is the Stoli.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for somebody to be like, "Oh, what are you buying the Russian vodka for?" And I'm like, "Hey, man, it's cheap, dude. Look,
cheap, dude. Look, from Latvia, and Latvia's not Russia."
That's what I know. But I was like, I'm sure that it's not, because first I said, whoa, did they just let it come back? Because I just immediately thought it was Russian.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know where. I mean, now, how to say, they're a big international brewing drinks company, so they got factories all over the place. So it makes sense that they would have some sort of facility, Latvia. And look, Latvia's like 50% Russian people anyway. So you still get the authentic feeling.
Problem with, the problem here isn't normal people and citizens, most of the time. Sure. So, but yeah, that was just something. That was just the recent liquor bro trend. That I think is going
That's
on.
a cool thing. Okay, craft. But here it's everything. They always say craft is something's craft whiskey, craft beer. Okay, craft beer was the original. Something's always craft something. There's even down at the next to the mall, the train station, there's a big market and there's lots of good food and plenty of good stuff in there. Like it's all nice. It's been renovated. But out the back, there's a new kebab store and they're trying to be fancy. I don't know. And their slogan is handmade kebabs. Like, what the fuck else was making your kebabs before? But fuck, like, what was I know there are machines that will slice the thing, but there's no machines in Estonia. Okay, so I don't know what they think the other like. It's a brown guy making my kebab. That's what every kebab store here is. It's awesome. That's what I want.
How are we going to make ourselves different? Who will say
handmade kebabs? My friend actually, that's funny because they're trying to be this fancy kebab place, and they've been open for a few weeks and they had some sort of opening event the other day, and there's all like people just walking like dressed nicely and shit at this kebab store, and my friend was walking by and he said that there were all these nice people dressed very well for the opening of this kebab store, and there was two local bums who saw this happening, walked up to the front door of the kebab store and were yelling, "Who wants to arm wrestle us? Come and arm wrestle us." And nobody knows what to do. They don't want to throw them out, and the security won't deal with them. Look, I think that's what you get if you try to make a Gucci kebab store, right? I want the weird guy making my kebabs. That's the point. I'm feeling like an upper class kebab tonight. No,
an upper class kebab. That's funny.
Kebab.
Yeah, you say kebab, I say kebab. Yeah. Well, kebabs. We've got a good show here under our belts. The reunion, like you said,
we've done a good hour and a half here. Yeah, we'll maybe wrap it up. So I think we can. I think we can get back. Let's see how we go next week. Now, but the schedules are getting back to normal for a little bit, so we can start to get to some sort of weekly routine again.
Yes, and I forgot to even talk about this because we'll mention this more next time. It'll be closer to it, but I'm going to be going back to the Retro World Expo.
Oh yeah.
I actually ended up getting some tickets to that, so
that's great. So you're going to go. You were saying you're going and you're hanging out with you don't have your own stand, but you're going to be there, hang out at Bob's stand.
Yeah, no pressure to. Bob wants me to fix some of his stuff while I'm there at the show. So.
Yeah, where's no money, no honey, baby. No money, no honey.
Yeah, I'll run up his bar. I'll make him buy everybody drinks. I don't know. He was buying everybody drinks last time. I was like, "What are you doing, Bob? You don't have to buy me a drink every time I come up." Hey.
So you planning on taking CRTs this year?
Yeah. I listed the PVM 1350 that's ready. It's listed on Patreon. And so if it doesn't sell, I'll take it. If it does sell and someone buys it there, I'll take it there. If someone buys it before then, I'll have another one that I'll get ready and try to take. I'm going to bring some other CRTs that I won't sell, just some small ones, I think, like the 5 and the 8-inch one. Mm-hmm. And but I'm not really sure. I'll bring something.
I think listeners to our channel, if they've heard Steve's stories from last year, the question that is going to be on everyone's mind is, what is your accommodation? Are you going to stay in the ghetto-ass suburb again?
No. That's what I was looking at. Golly, I am not, man. I am not staying there. That's the reason I booked the trip, was I got a notice that, the hotel's trying to play goofy games where they offer a negotiated rate, and then about a month ago, they said it was closed. It had sold out. This block was sold out, and they only had available rooms at 3 times the rate. Yeah, okay. And then I got another notice saying more rooms were available 3 weeks ago at the negotiated rate. Mm-hmm. And so I jumped on and booked it right then.
That's the plan.
Available.
You don't want to be taking this Uber back downtown
every
time.
I don't.
Hanging out with everyone and playing Shanks Melee in the lobby. This is what you want to be spending your time.
Well, there's been a shift in our area where actually Airbnb stuff used to be cheaper than the hotel by quite a bit last year, but it's almost flip-flopped this year where there's not much room. You're not saving any money this time between the two. The hotel is actually come down a little bit in price. So it's not. I mean, for 2 nights, I bought the insurance for the room, and after fees, it's $330 for 2 nights at the Marriott.
Oh, fair enough.
Which is right there, nice.
150 a night, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, I'd expect that.
And I don't want to ride it. Yeah, I don't want to ride back and run in the room, worrying about getting back in the hotel room.
You're going to have some crackhead trying to steal your CRTs. You got to park the van. You got to.
I'm not taking a van. I'm driving my old man car up there,
okay.
my cruiser.
The yacht.
Yeah. So we can talk about that some more next week.
We'll get into it next time.
And do our
That's
blind
right.
taste tests.
Absolutely. Next time we're testing sodas.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even talk about my
know.
fight stick. We'll talk about it next time. There's no rush on that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thanks for hearing us catch up and talk. We hope you enjoy it. If you have some thoughts, what are your thoughts on Dr. Wham? Sound off to Steve in
That's
Twitter.
the most
Thank you very
important
much.
question.
We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.